What is up, guys? Politics Gaming here, and today we're doing a brand new video about Power and Revolution. So, before the 2021 edition releases, I want to go ahead and answer some of the questions and discuss a couple of the bugs that we do have in the game, and as well as, going through and answering a lot of these questions. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, and I'll discuss some of the forum discussions that we have here. Wow, extremely informative. This is one of the best questions that I have ever seen on this game. Why stop the game? I will play, but it's stopped. To answer your question, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Go ahead and try again at a later time. City disappearing bug. Hi, I'm playing the 2019 version, but there are only two forums discussing this, and they're both from 2018. Has anyone else encountered a bug where cities will disappear off the map? Population doesn't go down or anything, but you can't just build roads, trains to them, and if you already have, it may look like a road to nowhere. I've actually run into this bug a couple of times. I don't necessarily know exactly where this starts from, but I think it's like because whenever I've run into it, I've actually seen it happen whenever you open the save, close the save, open the save, close the save, and you just keep opening and closing, opening and closing, opening, closing. And I think this guy actually says, "Have you tried reloading the previous save? There's some stuff that can cause bugs annexing countries. I think it's your best choice to go to the previous save." That might actually work, but I've also run into this bug several times, and I just don't save that often. I also have auto saving off, which I probably need to institute auto saving, and I would recommend it for everyone else. That's why the auto save feature is there, just in case you run into a bug that you find. I actually replied to this one. So this is the tax on pollution, $900 billion. I don't get how I can increase taxes on companies 10% and it gives me $150 billion. And then I increase taxes 1% on pollution and it gives me $900 billion. Am I missing something? Seems like that's huge. What is it even being measured for tax on companies? It's the company's profit that's being taxed. But what is the number tied to pollution? Amount of damage that they are doing to air quality qualified as numbers or something. Any reason not to just crank up that pollution tax to 4% and leave everything else alone and start the game with a massive budget surplus and only anger one group? It reads as slow. I read it slows industrial development, but how is that calculated? So we're going to go ahead and look at this in a couple of different ways. So what I replied is I basically said industrial pollution tax is basically carbon tax on steroids. It's measured on industrial waste, household waste, which is taxing how much trash one uses, CO2 emissions, and noise pollution. In this context, the tax could affect the air transportation, car industry, and especially the fossil fuel industry. The difference between IPT and carbon taxing is that the carbon tax is based on every metric ton of CO2 emitted by polluters and is a direct tax on the emission of CO2, while IPT is calculated as turnover, which is the amount of money in a given period. It is a direct tax on pollution sources and even households. And then he actually goes on to say, "Am I missing something? That's seems like that's huge. What is it? What's even being measured?" So, for example, the company tax is basically calculated, I believe, and this is a total guess on my part. I believe that it's a total. It's basically kind of taking all of the profits that you're making at that specific moment in time whenever you propose it, and it's basically calculating that tax in terms of the amount of money that you're making in profits off of those sectors, because those sectors that you're not exonerating are being taxed. And then so that's whenever the company tax comes in, is that it affects your entire economy as a whole. And then he actually goes on to say, any reason not to just crank it up to like 4% and leave everything else alone and start the game with a massive budget surplus? Yes, you can do that. But the thing about it is that if you've not seen my Eversim quality content video on the matter, essentially what happens, for example, if you're playing in the United States, if you crank up that industrial pollution tax to 4%, you are going to send your country into a recession. And with a 1% tax, we literally can see that. I mean, it sends my country into like a 3% negative growth rate. It launches unemployment into the sky. There's a lot of things that can happen whenever you use the IPT tax. So it's kind of up to you whether you want to do that, but you have to understand that you are going to have a lot of unemployment because the people that are working into sectors that are being affected by that tax are having to lay off their workers. Therefore, you're going to have a higher unemployment rate. I've seen my unemployment rate go up to like 10 to 12% just by increasing the industrial pollution tax to 1%. So it's a risk. It's a very big risk that you can send your country into, but if you're prepared for that, then yeah, you're going to be able to allocate that extra $900 billion into things like healthcare, education, manpower. You can, send more people with that higher unemployment rate. You're going to be able to recruit more into policing, into healthcare, into your military. So that there are benefits to the industrial pollution tax layoffs. Here's a really good question that was actually answered in the first time. So the question was, can I get more reservists and how can I get more reservists? And if possible, how? And someone came in to answer. A big shout out to Kratos. They said, you get more reservists depending on your population size, level of unemployment, armed forces salaries, and if the subscription is mandatory or not, meaning that it's the national service that he's actually talking about. If you raise the salaries enough, even if it's not mandatory, it'll be very interesting to people to get in your armed forces. It will also make your soldiers fight better and give them level 2 or 3 rankings in terms of the military. So that's a very interesting thing, and I'm actually going to go ahead and start increasing the amount of pay that I'm giving my military. So that means that I'm going to be able to get more reservists even whenever I'm not instituting a national service. So he says again, you'll get more reserves depending on your population size, level of unemployment, and armed forces salaries. And that's going to be a big one. So I'm going to have to test that theory out, but I'll get back to you guys if that is not the case. Here's a really good question about it. How to develop the water supply industry without only using subsidies. And I actually replied and said, exonerate and hand it off to the private sector if it's nationalized. And then Mr. Crab Rangoon, big shout out to Crab for answering this question. Okay, if your water supply networks are already nationalized and you find out it will cost your state way too much to privatize it, then leave it nationalized and simply hire more workers to improve the sector's productivity index, which is not the same as production, mind you. And then also subsidize and exonerate it. Subsidy encourages the producer to produce more by investing and increases the producer profits, while exonerating encourages hiring workers. Both impact profits and overall productivity. Most importantly, find a country that produces water supply networks very cheaply and do an import contract, which will benefit much of your agriculture and industry, as well as the consumers of the products that arise from those sectors. If you have a privatized water, leave it to private, and this is the best in his view. Continue to subsidize and or exonerate that sector. You can still import cheap, but keep in mind if you are trying to support your own domestic water supply networks, all cheaper foreign imports will be competing with your domestic producers, so keep it balanced whenever it comes to volumes and prices in these cases. What country are you playing as, and what are the some of the results so far? And guy says seems to have not replied to that. So a big thing from a Crab Rangoon. Thank you so much for replying. And here's another question that I see very often, and we actually added this into my economic guide along with Gabe Vogel. And I actually gave this guy a extra helpful token. So great answer for this. So the question is, how do I increase the value of the currency? And then so someone came, Santos came in and said, if we go back to the basics of economics, value of currency increases if demand for such increases. One of the ways to increase the demand for your currency is to increase exportation. If you increase exportation, foreign countries' demand for your currency will increase, thus increase the price and value of your currency. A positive trade balance is the indicator of your level of exportation. Hence, you will not need to enter into contracts with other countries to increase exportation. Just increase your output in farming, industry, services, or energy, and in a number of products to increase your trade balance. And we have a very helpful guy that comes in and said everything he said is heart, 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 heart. This game is only looks at inflation and interest rates, which he's wrong there. Keep inflation under 5% and interest rates at 10 to 20%. He's kind of right there. And then he says the game does not go off of basic economics. And I actually came in and said, I have an economist friend that can actually disagree with you. He's actually not an economist. He is a business major. And then I came in and said I worked on my economic guide with a friend of mine, and we discovered a way to increase the value of your currency is exactly how Santos said it was. Increasing trade balance along with the higher interest rates allows your currency to be worth more. I've attempted several economic policies in the game, and they do work. So I tend to play my game by actually implementing an economic policy rather than just throwing around tax increases for no reason. And then he actually replied back and said, "Okay, I found rates effective mainly though," and that is true that that is how it works. But if you actually know a little bit more about economics and how currencies their value increases or decreases, I mean, we can see in the game that that is exactly how you increase the value of your currency is that you have to export more, and then along with higher interest rates, that is how your currency becomes more into demand. And I guess this is going to be the last one for this episode of whatever the hell this is. Is there a way I can tell my country to start manufacturing screening tests and masks? So far, all I can do is way to cure a stockpile is to sign a trade deal with every single country for them, as well as I can tell every country, be it Haiti or Germany, has the same stock of tests and masks that I can request. And so I actually replied and said, not at the moment. No, I tend to spend several minutes at the beginning of any COVID playthrough just spamming contracts for masks. And I would recommend doing that. If you're playing with COVID, if you just got 2020 or something like that, basically what I do is that I just kind of go through and I just spend, maybe 5-10 minutes just straight up buying masks, medical respirator masks, the masks for the general public. And especially whenever COVID screening tests become available, I spend several more minutes buying those screening tests. That way I can have an effective screening policy. So you're gonna have to spend a little bit of time. You're not everything is gonna be done for you. And I think that's gonna be it for today. But yeah, if you guys like this, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave those questions in the comments below. And I then instead of using the forums, I can just look through YouTube comments and we can go on from there. So if you guys want to see more, just go ahead and leave your questions down in the comments below. Hit the like button so we can get the 5,000 subscribers. I want to get the 5,000 subscribers very, very soon. So again, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching and take care.